So you're saying with Hilton Honors, I can use points for a free night stay anywhere?
Anywhere.
What about fancy places like the Canopy in Paris?
Yeah, Hilton Honors, baby.
Or relaxing sanctuaries like the Conrad in Tulum?
Hilton Honors, baby.
Ooh, what about the 5-star Waldorf Astoria in the Maldives?
Are you going to do this for all 9,000 properties?
When you want points that can take you anywhere, anytime, it matters where you stay. Hilton, for the stay. Book your spring break now.
Marketing Geeks. Welcome to the show, everybody. We are so happy that you are here. But before we get into the meat of the show, we're going to pay some bills. So hang tight and we'll be right back.
Picture this, a curve in the road, a change in plans. Well, what do you say? With the all-new Audi Q3, the answer's always yes. Yes to adventure. Yes to escape. Yes to performance. Yes to comfort. Yes to right now. Because saying yes without hesitation, that's real luxury. The all-new Audi Q3, made for the yes life.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
So our guest tonight is the founder of Bobsled Marketing, which is a digital agency that helps established consumer brands grow their Amazon sales channels, which is pretty awesome. And she's running a remote business from a remote location, and she's going to tell us all about it. Ladies and gentlemen, Kiri Masters.
Hey, hello. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really
thank you for saying yes, because you told us that you actually heard an episode of the Marketing Geeks and you still agreed to be on the show. So
I do my research.
Let me ask you real quick, Kiri, about the name Bobsled Marketing.
Yeah.
Now, does this have any connection to the movie Cool Runnings at all?
No, it doesn't. But I do get asked that, and people are like, "Is there an Australian bobsled team?" Because that sounds just as obscure as a Jamaican bobsled team. But
it does.
Yeah, no. There's the short story is when my husband and I got married, we got sort of a kooky present from one of our friends, which was a toboggan, which I think we're going to come back to later in the show, but I had a DIY lighting company, and I've turned it into a wall lamp. This toboggan was sitting on the wall. I'm like, well, I need to name my company something. I need to name it something. Looked around, Bobsled Marketing, that was the thing. And at least initially tried to come up with a clever tagline, something like, we'll help your marketing, give your marketing a push or something like that. Could never come up with like the perfect tagline for it.
How about like feel the rhythm, feel the ride, like that's in Cool Runnings.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Like Bobsled was the first thing you saw and you were like, yeah. I mean, it's a good thing that I guess you didn't see 2 dogs humping in the front yard. Wow.
Oh my God.
That would have been an awkward title for a company.
Yeah. I might have kept looking, but yeah, there's probably someone listening who has like the perfect tagline. They're like, oh my God, you should have just said, well, if you've got any ideas, hit me up. But I've been doing this for 5 years, and surprisingly few people ask about the name.
All right, make sure to tweet at Kiri Masters if you have a great idea for a bobsled tagline for Bobsled Marketing. I love it.
Well, first of all, I want to find out, because you've got this really fascinating story. You're running a remote company from a remote secret location. Oh, it's not that secret.
It's a lair.
Yeah. So how did you tell us how you ended up where you are? Like, give us the chain of events. It's really fascinating.
Okay. So I'm Australian, born and raised in Australia. Early in my career, I was in the banking world, worked for a big retail bank in Australia, and then ultimately decided to move with my boyfriend, now husband, to New York in 2011. Got a job working at JP Morgan in New York, did that for a few years. And while I had that job, I decided to start a little business on the side just for fun. And it was a e-commerce business that sold do-it-yourself lamp kits. Okay, like as niche as you can get. Like I kept hearing this advice with the podcast I was listening to, like be super specific, pick a niche and like go even deeper in that niche. And I really took that advice to heart because I was selling online do-it-yourself lamp making kits to make lampshades and like floor lamps and stuff like that. So it was very, very specific. And that was kind of a hobby for me, but one that I managed to learn about all things about running a business, from setting up the store online. I set myself up on Etsy. I did all my own bookkeeping. I was filming videos on the weekends of tutorials and things like that, some of which you can still find on YouTube, and we were just talking about it before the show, but there's one that's like
the channel is still
weirdly
there.
Popular video of me making a lampshade if you want to. So that was my
push that. We want to get that to, we want to get that. You said it was 121,000. We want to get that to like 121,001.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, life achievement unlocked. Yeah, so that was my first foray into entrepreneurship, starting this little company. Today it's actually still in business and it's doing quite well. We've expanded it into more like craft suppliers. So we're rebranding it to Makely. Maybe I'll come back to that a little bit later. But that was how I got started. Sort of had the realization after a couple of years, if you'd believe it, that this wasn't going to pay my rent if I wanted to leave my job, my little
the lamp industry,
business.
not so hot.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's fun, but so then I realized that after running that business and launching some of those products on Amazon, I knew enough about Amazon to kind of do some consulting. So I left my job, did not have, really went out on a limb. I was at JP Morgan as a commercial banker, working with business owners. My book of business was like $3 to $20 million companies. And so I'd got to know a lot of small business owners and learnt all about business credit and cash management. And
wait, what year was this that you were doing this?
I left that job in early 2015, like January 2015.
So first of all, let me just rewind a little bit, because you were a banker at JP Morgan Chase, and which is a type of industry, and that I would probably put under S for soulless. No judgment, just that's my own personal opinion. But what was there a tipping point that you're like, I got to get out of here? Like what was it that made you say, I need to walk away and do something completely different?
Yeah, I want to hear this.
Oh, you guys are digging deep. One.
Hey, you said you listened to the show, man.
I'd been dabbling in this hobby business for a couple of years, and for most of my time in banking, I wasn't a commercial banker. I was actually on the strategy side of strategy and marketing side mostly.
Okay.
And I
salaried then, I take it, not
yeah. So I was kind of like redesigning business processes and stuff like that, and I got to know like the commercial banking team, and I recognized, hey, if I went into sales, and particularly if I went into this, like the small business side of things, I would get to speak with a lot of business owners and understand what things are like. And then I'd also learn all this stuff about business financials that I didn't really know before. So I took that job because I kind of thought I was really enjoying that entrepreneurial endeavor. And I thought, let me pick the most entrepreneurial job I could possibly get at the bank, and then I'll move on. So I was thinking about it for a couple of years beforehand, but one thing that kind of pushed me over the edge before I was certainly before I was financially ready to do that, was I got diagnosed when I was 27 with type 1 diabetes.
Oh, wow.
Which is
That's pretty late to be diagnosed, right?
It's very late. It's fairly unusual, not completely unheard of, but quite unusual. And they caught it really early on, so it never ended up in the ER or anything like that. But it just made me think, like, it's not going to kill me anytime soon, but I don't want to, keep working at a job that I don't really love. I should go out and do what I want to do and do this thing. So it wasn't, I wasn't given a death sentence or, a year to live or anything like that by any stretch. But it just, that was probably one of the catalysts of me saying, I'm going to take, the bull by the horns. I'm going to go out there, quit my job. I don't know what's going to happen. Worst thing is go back to the bank. People have done that before. And so I left in.
So this is more like a wake-up call, I would say. So you had kind of like this wake-up call with a health scare. And so tell me the salary gap here, though, because you've been doing your hobby for a while. Were you making any sort of significant income with your hobby that made you think like this was going to be pretty easy transition? Or was this kind of like diving in, like who knows what's going to happen? Like what kind of a salary gap are we talking here between like leaving a secure JP Morgan, like well-respected company outside of Andros, well-respected. Like what was that like?
It was 100% salary cut for sure. And because my e-commerce business is not making in e-commerce, it takes either a lot of cash upfront or a lot of years of continual reinvestment to actually start making a profit. And that's one thing that I've became very real to me, running both an e-commerce business and a service business. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
I just, did you have like a safety net out of any kind, or did you have like you know you were in a relationship? Was there there something to fall back on, or was this really like the metaphor, like we're burning the ships and we're just going for it here? Like I'm just curious what that was.
So a little bit of both. Did have some savings. I was also married, and my husband had a steady job. So it wasn't, I knew I had probably like a couple to a few months up my sleeve, and I could always, I left on really good terms with my job, and I felt like it wasn't going to be too challenging for me to return back to return back to a salary job. Yeah. But it was a big jump. And so what I decided to do was supplement that business, which was a money pit still back then, and do some consulting and help some other established brands figure out their Amazon stuff. And that's really how my agency was born.
Well, it's the hallmark of any entrepreneur to be a risk taker, right? So, so admire the ability to take those massive, massive risks. So let's talk about Amazon. So you had kind of dabbled in, you mentioned like Etsy, you mentioned a few different networks or channels, sales channels. So what made you finally settle on Amazon? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I kept hearing about it. I've always listened to a lot of podcasts, and I kept hearing about it on podcasts. And initially I was like, well, why would I sell on Amazon? It's a huge company. I'm a tiny company. I'm selling craft products. I'm selling such a niche product. It doesn't make any sense. And then after a while, I just decided, hey, why not? I'll just try it out. And I can't say that it was an overnight success. It took, like any channel, it took some investment, it took some effort to figure out, how does the algorithm work? How does fulfillment work? What kind of processes do I need to set up here? And so, and Amazon, even back then, like it's a lot more complicated now, to be honest, because there's more programs and more rules and more other sellers. But back then it was still kind of complicated. And while I was still at the bank, I had some clients who were manufacturers, and I'd ask them about their Amazon channel, and they were like, oh, can't figure it out. Never making any money. I know that we could make more money with it, but we just, don't have the time, don't have the right people to do it. And that really got my cogs turning when I was already thinking about leaving, that I could go and do some consulting.
So how many active sellers are on Amazon right now? Like, give us a reference point here, because I've lost track. I know that
there's over 1 million.
Over 1 million active sellers.
Over 1 million sellers Yeah. And
so at any point, did you want to get into the game of like
manufacturing stuff in China, like that people are doing, and then, doing drop shipping? Or was this just simply like, no, it's going to be a lateral business, I'm just going to do consulting work?
Right. So did I ever think about not only helping other companies with their Amazon channel, but creating more brands of my own?
Yeah.
No, because I recognized from my very small e-commerce operation that e-commerce and retail has that negative cash. And this is the ex-banker in me coming out, has a negative cash flow cycle. So you need to spend money on inventory and distribution, pay for your inventory before you get paid from a customer. And it's even worse if you're doing you're selling to retailers in the traditional sense, because they'll only pay you 90 days after they get your inventory. So you have a negative cash flow cycle here where you're spending money way before you make any money. And with a service-based business, if you do it right, you get paid before you do anything. So I had this was my job. I didn't have other income coming in. I was watching my savings start slowly go down. I had no interest in pouring more cash into another brand, which would potentially take years to actually start turning a profit, which was the case with my first business.
So you're you're telling us about kind of getting into e-commerce generally has a negative cash flow. So how do you coach companies to kind of work around that or get around that? Can you talk a little bit about like how do you get around the negative cash flow aspect?
And also just like, what's your process? Like when someone hires you to consult, like what do you generally do to help them with their business?
So I'll give you a very unsatisfying answer is that
yes.
With Bobsled, we work with established brands who've already gone through that whole painful time a long time ago. Yeah. So, I mean, in the beginning, when I first started the company, I was working with a lot of brands who'd raised money on Kickstarter and a lot of startups, but over time, was able to work with larger and larger brands, which they pay their bills, and that's not always the case when you're cash strapped small company in the beginning. So yeah, we at Bobsled, like we would typically only work with a company that does at least 10 million in revenue a year. And at that point, we're working with someone who has a dedicated e-commerce team, someone in charge of Amazon. And so that's the point that we got to with Bobsled. But
are these companies already on Amazon that you're working with, or are some of these companies running their private e-commerce, doing 10 million in sales from they're from their commercial website, and now they're coming to Amazon, or is it a mix?
It's a mix. At this stage, Amazon is something that most established consumer brands have tried to do. It's not so common that we would work anymore with a brand that has no idea about Amazon, hasn't at least tried it yet.
So, when you made this transition, I'm going to get
into like the nuts and bolts of the Amazon thing in a second, but I want to find out about the next kind of iteration of your lifestyle. You ended up in Colombia, and I want to find out how that decision was made and how you run your business remotely from there.
Sure. So after I set up Bobsled, and it was just me in the beginning, and then my husband was like, "Hey, that looks pretty fun working from home. Can I come along?" And so he ultimately left his job and started working with me. Once we started making money, and then my first hire was a bookkeeper part-time, and then I hired this lady who'd recently moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and was looking for a complete career change and everything with her move with her family out to Cleveland.
And where did you find her? How did you find her?
I found her on a site which is still around today and doing awesome, called hiremymom.com.
Hire My Mom. I've not heard of that one. Awesome.
Yeah, you can't make this up. Like when I just want to tell everyone listening, today there's 30 people working at Bobsled. It's like a full on thing. But this is where I got started. HireMyMom.com. Found this woman who was in a big career transition, life transition, and had no idea what she was getting into, I'm pretty sure. And so she was in Cleveland. I was in Brooklyn. My husband was in Brooklyn. We had this tiny 1-bedroom apartment, which was our boiler room. Like, he would do sales calls in the bedroom. I would do sales calls in the kitchen. It was just manic, just so full on. And we had Julie out in Cleveland, and we're training her up and started to grow and get more clients. And it became...
Had you or your husband ever trained an employee before or ever managed teams before? Was this a transition in and of itself to move into that management role? Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I guess I'd had a couple of years of sales experience. So I had my husband, and I was really into blogging, and because that's what I did a lot in my first company, was lots of videos and blogs and tutorial kind of content. So I carried that over to Bobsled, and I was blogging more or less every week about Amazon marketing or something like that. Mm-hmm. But in terms of managing people and stuff like that, it was pretty new to me. I knew from listening to all these podcasts for many years, I needed SOPs. I needed processes to be able to train someone up. And so I think that I was fairly competent at doing that from the beginning, like training someone up. And that is a big cultural thing that we have today with Bobsled as well, that everyone is super process oriented.
You learned a lot of that from listening to Marketing Geeks, right? I mean, you said podcasts, I'm sure.
Yeah. How long have you guys been podcasting for? I'll just say whatever year it was that you started.
2018. So it's been, but we started in June. So we are at, where are we at right now? The 14, we're at the 14-month point, because I can look at my son and subtract 1 month from his birth date. And that's where we're at.
Brutal. Yeah. That's what a time to start a podcast.
Exactly.
So how did you end up where you are now?
Right. So I started the company fully remote, and I didn't meet Julie face-to-face for 2 years, which surprises people because today she is the president of the company.
So awesome.
And everyone, all 30 employees, report directly up to her. But I didn't meet her face-to-face for 2 years. And I think we've met in person over the last 5 years, 5 times. Yeah. So I'm going to Cleveland for the first time in a couple of months. So I just bring that all up to say I had this remote business that was, I didn't sit down in 2015 and say, okay, I'm going to start an agency and have 30 people and like do it all remotely. There was no plan like that. It was just like, how can I find someone who's like competent and really affordable for me? Because I was, still on a shoestring budget. And so I found someone online who made sense across all the dimensions I was looking for. So I sort of accidentally built it that way.
That's still like, 2015, we're talking about a 4-year time window here. That's pretty quick to scale from basically 0 to 30 employees with a virtual marketing business. Yeah. So hats off to you for that. And also I feel like we just like massively made money for HireMyMom.com. I think they're going to just get all kinds of clients from this interview right now.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's great. I've actually, I think, yes, that they do really well because they have, it's such as a mom myself as well, it's just like, it's so wrong to me that mothers are instantly kind of painted in this brush of, well, they're going to check out and not take their careers seriously, or they don't want to, mums, they're just like anyone else. They want to do something challenging. They want something flexible, but there was no diminishing my ambition or my focus or my work ethic when I became a mother. And a lot of people say that becoming a parent actually gives them more of an edge. So I think that Hire My Mom is a great concept, and I have really enjoyed working with them.
So then like the big move happened. So tell us about that.
Yep. So living in New York, ultimately during my pregnancy, decided to go back to Australia because my husband's Australian as well. We decided to go back to Australia to have our son, and hung out there for 6 months, ran the business from Australia for 6 months. And that was difficult just because of the time zones, like a 12-hour time difference between Perth, where we were, and the East Coast of the US. So that was, it wasn't possible for us to stay there, but we decided, hey, we do everything remotely. Why not, instead of going immediately back to New York, why don't we go try and live somewhere else for a little bit, but make it on the same time zone and make it somewhere warm and fun. So we were looking at Spain, Panama, Colombia, and for some reason, Colombia sort of sifted its way to the top of the list. So we came here first. Colombia's in Central Time or Eastern Time, depending on daylight savings. And we just didn't leave. Ended up buying an apartment here. And so we've been here almost 2 years. Yeah.
I imagine the cost of living is cheaper than New York also.
Yes, you could say that.
So, I mean, was there any big reason that you wanted to get out of the U.S., or was it just like, oh, it's nice and always warm here? And, what was there any other underlying factors, or was it just a matter of like Colombia was beautiful and you just wanted to stick around?
It's a lot of factors. We were in the US for 6 years and had sort of, I think New York wears a lot of people down, sort of wore us down towards the end. And so the weather here is beautiful. It's 70 degrees every day of the year. Rains in the afternoons sometimes, and that's pretty much it. Like the weather is just sensational. It's easy to live here with the exchange rate, and cost of living is really low. And it's just so different to what we grew up with in like a very white Western country. And here is just, people do things very, very differently. And
do most people speak Spanish there, or is there like a combination of English and Spanish, or what's like the dominant language over there?
Oh, it's Spanish. Yeah, you can't really get by without speaking some Spanish, and so that's been another challenge as well. Is learning Spanish to some degree of competency, which I can't even say I'm some degree of competent. But my son is he's almost 3, and he's going to preschool, and he only speaks Spanish at school now too. So that's really given me an interest.
Yeah, that's what happened to my kid.
I just sent him to a Dutch school because I'm in the Netherlands, and he speaks like super good Dutch. He's 5, and he's about to turn 5, and I've been struggling with it, but he's just like, bink.
Yes.
They pick it up fast. So, well, that's pretty incredible. And as far as like the lifestyle goes, is it, do you feel mostly safe, about as safe as New York? Like what's the vibe overall for you?
Yeah, I think there's places so I'm in Medellin, which if you've watched Narcos, that's where all of that stuff went down. So
I have not yet, but I need to watch that show. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I think here people have mixed feelings about it because it's brought a lot of interest, but also people kind of want to forget that decade of their country's history. So
Scarface too, right?
Yeah. So there's kind of mixed feelings here about the popularity of that show, but there's places I wouldn't go to in the city, but there's places in Chicago I wouldn't go to. There's places in New York I wouldn't go to. So it's just one of those things you just keep your wits about you, and you understand it's a big city and not every neighborhood is going to welcome you in. But I feel the same way about many US cities as well. It's not so different.
No, I'd like to kind of take it back to Amazon and to business a little bit.
Yeah.
But I want to know, like, okay, so you hired the mom in Cleveland. And so now you have a team of 3 basically. And so tell me about and you mentioned that your husband was doing sales calls, but tell me how you acquired your early clients, like your first client, your early, maybe your first 10. Was this all cold calling? Like you mentioned, I remember you saying your husband was calling. So I'm assuming there was a lot of cold calling involved, or how are you attracting these businesses? Because you're marketing to businesses that are doing 10 million in revenue. So you're going after kind of medium-sized to bigger companies. So how did you go about the marketing efforts behind that to find the clients?
So in the beginning, we were not working with $10 million companies. We were working with all startups, anyone that would have us and pay us, we would work with them. And so what we did was we actually used and I'm not sure I'd do this today, but back then we used a lead gen company to help us do cold email outreach specifically to people and companies who'd raised, I think it was like over $200K on Kickstarter for their physical product.
Creative.
And so, this lead gen company just did all the heavy lifting of getting the list together and figuring out people's names and how much they raised and like personalizing the email. So instead of saying, hey, Justin, this is Kiri. Template. It was like, hey, Justin, congrats on raising $300K for your new yo-yo. That was 400% more than you needed to raise. That's amazing. And it was like customized with actual like percentage math in it. So that actually, that worked pretty well because it got people's attention and it looked like we'd really...
It's funny you say that. We did an episode on cold emailing quite a while ago, probably like 6 months ago. But one of the things that he shared on the show was exactly what you just said, personalizing like at least the first paragraph, first couple sentences to point out, like even if you're going to like be on a podcast, point out like a recent episode, or if you're going to reach out to a company, give a statistic, give something specific, just like what you're saying. And that's exactly kind of what he taught. So it's cool to hear that kind of reiterated for validation. So
they're still using it, but that time.
And that's a good one. And so like, did you say you used the third party to do lead gen? And what was the cost? If you don't mind sharing that, how much is it? Like if somebody out there wanted to get a lead gen company to do something like that, is that an expensive thing to do, or how do you go about even finding a company like that?
I'm not sure today if it would cost the same amount. I've really got no idea because we did that once and it worked, but we didn't have to do it again. And I'm struggling to remember. I honestly can't remember how much it was. It seemed like it was like $2,000 to set up a campaign. I remember that. And then I think that was like 50 leads or something. Maybe that's too many. I can't really reliably say what it cost, but it seemed like a lot of money to me at the time.
Of course.
And there was no guarantee that it was going to work. And it did end up working exceptionally well for us. So I think that's the shame. That's the downfall of the lead gen business model. If you've got a company like that, if you do a really good job, then your clients might not need you anymore, because we did one campaign that worked really, really well, and then we didn't need that company anymore.
Yeah, that's very true. We had somebody on the show just 2 weeks ago talking about like curing baldness. We were just joking about like, you really could cure it. Like it's just a one-off and then they're gone.
Right. It's actually, that's kind of what Bobsled does in some cases as well, is that after a while, and this is why there's a new project that I'm working on and we can talk about a little bit, but a lot of clients, they might work with us for a year or a couple of years or even a few months and then say, hey, you guys have been so great. We're going to bring this in-house now because you've taught us so much.
So they outgrow you. Yeah. But hopefully they liked you so much that they refer you down the line too, though. So the relationship is there. Go ahead, Andres.
Well, I was curious also. I have two questions. Just one tying back to living in Colombia, work visa. How do you have to go into like Costa Rica every like 90 days? How does that work?
So if you don't want to get a resident visa, you can do that sort of hopping around kind of thing where you just spend 6 months in the country. You can spend up to 6 months per calendar year in the country. But we bought an apartment, and so we qualified for an investor visa here.
Oh, that's cool. Then the second question I have is I want to get more into the nuts and bolts about Amazon itself, and kind of what exactly is it that you do for a client? Like how do you like help a client and be seen? And also, how has the business changed?
Yeah. So with Bobsled, we call ourselves a full service Amazon agency. And what that means is we help brands with all their operational processes, everything from inventory forecasting to helping them create shipping plans and like literally sending inventory into Amazon, to handling their customer service, to disputing fees with Amazon, to handling all of their cases. So that's all the operational stuff that needs to happen. And then we also do organic marketing, which is your SEO and product content optimization. So keyword research, putting the copy together, putting the templates together, making sure everything shows up really nicely on Amazon, that you're ranking for keywords that you're interested in ranking for. And then we also do advertising as well. So the paid search advertising vehicles that Amazon has, as well as their media, paid media.
So do you do a combination of Google paid search and Amazon paid search ads, or are you, is it PPC? Is that how Amazon runs their ads? Because I've not run on the Amazon platform. I haven't run ads, so I'm not too familiar with the way they run their ad system. Can you tell me about that?
Yes. So they have a PPC system, just like Google. It's auction-based, bid-based, paid search, and we only handle Amazon. So that's been good for our sort of credibility as a company, is that we just do Amazon, and so we don't ever get distracted with these other platforms. But at the same time, I think some brands really want to work with an agency that will do everything for them across all channels, and that can, really depends on the agency that you're working with. Some of them have that capability to have a true expertise in all channels, but I think it's kind of difficult to find. So
I agree. I tend to agree with you that I think agencies should be looked at niche specific wise, like look for what they do best and kind of hire there. Unless it's like a gigantic advertising agency, that has tons of employees, but a lot of them are kind of relatively small. And so I would look more at the niche side. So one thing I want to talk about is because there's 1 million sellers on Amazon, how do you help like in terms of competition? So we have, let's say somebody has a product that there's others that are like it on the market. How would you help them in terms of like visibility, getting found? I know, okay, so PPC is one of them obviously, but is there anything else that you would do to help with visibility on Amazon?
Yeah, so PPC is going to be very helpful because many sellers out of those 1 million don't run advertising at all. And so it means if you're running PPC advertising, it's the only way to reliably get to the top of search results. So you can pay your way to the top, essentially. And so that's why if you search for Samsonite spinner luggage,
it's not Samsonite.
Something else shows up that's not Samsonite, right? At the top of search results.
Yep, pretty smart.
So that is certainly the most reliable way to get to the top of search and get in front of people and maybe take one of Samsonite's customers. But you don't want all of your sales to come from advertising because that gets expensive pretty quickly. So you want to also be looking at organic ranking factors, which for Amazon means what's your recent sales history. So do you have a more popular product than the luggage company next to you? And if you have more sales than them on an average daily basis, then you will get, all other things being equal, you will get ranked higher in search results.
What about reviews? How important are reviews for search rankings? Are they as important as daily volume and sales, or are they less important? Or does it matter that they're verified review, verified buyer? Or can you tell me about reviews?
Yeah, so they don't have a direct impact on ranking.
Okay.
They help with conversion because from a
social
buyer's
proof.
social proof, exactly. So if you've got if you've got hundreds more or even thousands more product reviews, but they're all 5-star and they all came in within a week, and like people are cottoning on to the fact that the system can be gamed a little bit, and shoppers are pretty savvy when they're looking at reviews as well. So it needs to be credible, but so you could have a large number of reviews but be less credible and have a lower conversion rate and therefore rank lower in search.
To that point about like kind of gaming the system, is there any way to game the you bought this, people that buy this tend to buy this next product? Is there any way to game that part of the system? I'm just kind of curious because that seems to be a nice way of upselling people from one product to another. And I'm wondering, like, how does Amazon determine that? Is that just algorithm based and that's just kind of like, this is true behavior, or is there a way of sellers kind of manipulating, or maybe not manipulating, but intentionally changing
gaming it? Yeah, just gaming the system.
It's all algorithm based, and there's no real way to game that. What you could do if you want to get 2 of your products together is run promotions that are like buy one get one promotions, where you might have a pair of sunglasses and a sunglasses case, and then have like a discount where if you buy the sunglasses, you get the case with those 2 products together. And then eventually Amazon will recognize that those 2 products get bought together a lot, and they might start placing them in that frequently bought together tile. But you could also run those promotions on social and like provide that discount. Yeah. The more people that are buying 2 products together, the more they will be linked with that
kind
algorithm.
Of a long game strategy there. Yeah.
Yeah. I am opposed to black or grey hat tactics of any kind on Amazon. The consequences are so steep, and it's just not worth it. It's not worth any kind of short-term benefit.
What are the consequences? What are they doing to people right now?
You get your product suspended, you get your account suspended, and in cases where you get your account suspended, sometimes they'll block your company from opening an account ever again.
Wow.
And so for a big company,
and you've got to listen to the Marketing Geeks like 20 episodes in a row.
That's right. They sit you down. They do they don't let you close your eyes. You've got to listen to the full back catalog.
full on Clockwork Orange with your eye. I mean, it's a podcast, but
I'll never do it again.
So,
so the question I have is there's probably a lot of marketers out there who want to, like, here's a perfect example. Like here in the Netherlands, Amazon is not quite here yet, but I know they're planning on showing up here at some point.
Any minute.
And I've actually thought about this, like, it would be like as soon as they get here, going to like smaller businesses to get them on Amazon would probably be a pretty good endeavor because nobody really knows how to work the system here. So what would you recommend to me if I wanted to start that type of business and give up this lucrative podcasting thing?
I'm your competition there, buddy.
Well, find a cheap lead gen company. Use the email template that I did. No, it is. Well, I was very interested as an Australian. I was very interested when Amazon finally launched in Australia as well. The challenge is that Amazon completely dominates US commerce, but in other markets is not quite as big a thing. And even as close as Canada, a lot of the time, it's just from a brand's perspective, there's so much more logistics and cost involved in setting up on Amazon Canada that they price their products higher there. A lot of Canadians end up buying from the US site and having it forwarded over. And then in Australia, it just took a long time to get up and running. And these international markets are just not as well used as in the US. And so especially if the market is small, it could be challenging to make it a big enough project.
But I mean, is it still
the type of business where maybe a smaller marketer can get into that. So how would somebody who doesn't know anything about that, what would be the advice that you would give somebody like one of our 7 listeners if they wanted to be an Amazon consultant or get on Amazon with their product? Like what would you recommend to somebody?
This might be a good segue because don't you have a book coming out there, Kiri?
Yeah, I've got a book, but the project that I've been working on is called the Marketplace Institute. And what I found from working with so many brands over the years and speaking with thousands more is that a lot of them, whether they're large or small, want to ultimately grow their own in-house Amazon capability. And so they don't always want to have to rely on an agency or on a consultant to do absolutely everything for them because it's become a more important channel. They'd rather keep some institutional knowledge sticking around. They'd rather invest in their team. They could probably save a few bucks. And so I've spent the last few months working on this project called the Marketplace Institute that provides, it's a learning platform. It's a Wikipedia of everything that we've developed, all of our processes and checklists and best practices that we've developed at Bobsled Marketing over the years, as well as peer masterminds where you can get together with a curated group of a few other people and talk about what's working and not with your brand on Amazon. And then also the first Amazon helpline, which is something that kept coming up over and over again with e-commerce directors, e-commerce managers. It's like, there's no Amazon helpline. There's no one to really bounce things off when I've got a very specific issue that someone has never written a blog post about. So my short answer to that question is if you are a consultant or someone looking to set up like a support business supporting brands on Amazon, check out the Marketplace Institute because that's somewhere where we are going to help consultants actually provide the same like processes and tools that we would as an agency and sort of help others that way.
Where and when can we expect to find that available?
That launches on September 16.
Oh, pretty quick. Okay. Right. And then,
do you have a price point on that? Like how much are you going to be charging for that?
So during the beta stage, which is 2 months, and we're only going to let 100 people in. Nice. So the knowledge base, which is the wiki of all of it, I think we're at 85 processes and checklists and things like that right now, as well as weekly news updates and weekly office hours, like calls where we'll jump on and answer people's questions as they come in. During beta, that's $75 a month. And then to be matched in a peer mastermind and have that group be placed in that group and have that coordinated and have like a Bobsled Amazon expert join that call as well every 2 weeks, that is also $75 a month during beta.
Separately? So a separate 75?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that's very reasonable. Wow. I mean, that's like, I think you're too cheap, but that's okay.
I agree. I just, with the pricing, it's just something where I knew 100% it was going to change. And so I didn't put a whole lot of, I just knew it was going to change. So go out with a nice price, get people in, get lots of feedback, and then
and where would people go to register for one of those remaining 25 slots or however many you have left?
It's just themarketplaceinstitute.com.
Okay, so themarketinginstitute.com, or I'm sorry, themarketinginstituteplace.com, correct? Did I get it right or what?
themarketplaceinstitute.com.
themarketplaceinstitute.com. Got it that time.
Yeah.
We'll put the URL in the down below in the description. And where where else can we find you if anyone has questions and they want to find out more?
Sure. I'm most active on LinkedIn. You can find me Kiri Masters, and if you send me a connection request, just say that you listened to this podcast. I'll definitely accept.
Okay. Unless it's me, right? Because You're like,
I might not accept your request.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to connect with you right now. So you better do it
live on air here.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Well, listen, I really appreciate your time and, talking to us, finding out more about it. Amazon is a very deep rabbit hole, obviously. And we want to, we want all of our people here to be empowered to definitely do this. Do you see the future? Like, what do you see the future of Amazon being? Being that you're deep in it.
That's a good question. I think that Amazon's going to get broken up either by themselves or by the regulators. Yeah, they're handing themselves too many wild cards with their private label products and all of that. And with their Amazon's own private label brands, there's over 400 of them. And I just don't see it as a profit center for them. And my assessment of that whole business model for them is that they're really just trying to fill their assortment in and say, okay, you could get a $400 Patagonia hiking jacket, or you could get something from a Chinese seller for $40. If you want something in the middle but nothing exists, then we're going to create a brand of hiking products at $100 price point, because nothing exists like that. And we don't want our Amazon doesn't want its shoppers to go anywhere else for anything. So my strong belief is that they don't care about making money with those products. They just want to fill holes in their assortment, because they just can't make that much money with these products.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why they have sort of given themselves preferential ad placements that other sellers and vendors don't have access to. And there's no proof of this, but there's some
circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, there's some hypothetical, maybe they're giving themselves a leg up in the organic search results as well, which I'm not sure I specifically believe, but I just think that they've really not done themselves any favors, because they've been getting a lot of negative attention with this, and they're going to eventually either just decide to stop doing that because it's not worth the negative press, or spin them out.
Well, I wanted to say too, because I was looking through your Twitter feed and you had an article link here about how there's an important case on Amazon where they claim that they facilitate the interactions between buyers and sellers on the marketplace, and therefore they don't need to be paying sales tax.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that's going to change? Do you think? I mean, I guess it matters who's in office, but do you see taxes becoming a big, because that would shift. I mean, that's got to be a ton of money they would have to pay if that were to shift. So how would that affect Amazon?
Yes, that would be a big one. It all happens state by state, which is the challenging thing. So they have to treat sellers in different states differently. And then sales tax is also based on which state or tax jurisdiction the customer was in as well. So it's complicated business, but Amazon's been figuring all that out for decades for the brands that sell to them on a wholesale basis. They have always collected sales tax for the brands that sell to Amazon on a wholesale basis. They've just refused to do it for the marketplace sellers. And it's like, well, I'm sure that there is some switch they could turn to make that capability available, and they've refused to do it. And in my opinion, they're speaking out both sides of their mouth to say, we're just a marketplace, so we shouldn't be responsible for collecting sales tax. All we do is bring buyers and sellers together. So we could not possibly get involved with that. And then at the same time, the way that they treat sellers and the way that they talk about a seller's relationship with a end customer is like, no, that is our customer. You cannot contact them. You can't have anything to do with them. We're going to meter out a little bit of data here, but they are our customer. And it's like, okay, well, which one are you? Are you a pure marketplace that doesn't have anything to do except bring buyers and sellers together? It's not really how they've been acting. And so I think that their whole argument of not being required, that they shouldn't be required to collect sales taxes is baloney.
And I guess this is why Bezos has bulked up, and he's like, he's all muscular now. So that in case somebody challenges him on this, he can scare them away.
Exactly. He used to look like young Bill Gates, and now he looks like he can just crush you with his mind. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting.
Crush you with his brain as well. I just think
smart guy. Definitely a smart guy.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see where Amazon goes, because I have this love-hate relationship with them. On the one hand, my mother actually worked for them before she passed away, and she kind of gave me the inside scoop. And they treat the employees like robots, and it's also hurting a lot of businesses. There's a lot of negatives to just Amazon as an entity. But on the other hand, I get to have my popcorn popper by like Thursday.
Right. Exactly.
So I don't know. It's
So, but we're wrapping up here. I do want to give you one last chance here, because I know you. I'm on your Twitter, and you have this. You're promoting Amazon for CMOs.com, and you're promoting a book that you're releasing. Can you plug that real quick? Because I want you to be able to plug that, and then also talk about you have a podcast. It says here too. So tell me.
Yes. So, in addition to running the agency, starting the Marketplace Institute, being a podcast host, writing for Forbes, and missing something as well, I also decided to write another book. I published one in 2016 as well. That's right. God forbid if I'd ever have 10 minutes to myself. So Amazon for CMOs, I partnered up with another agency, Amazon agency owner in New York, Mark Power, who has a lot of experience in the branding and media space. And we wrote this book, Amazon for CMOs, which is really for an executive leadership audience at typically larger brands looking to figure out Amazon. How should they set up their internal organizational structure? How should they think about budgeting for innovation? How should they think about working with partners? And I spend a lot of time talking about quite fairly tactical Amazon stuff. And so this was an interesting one to put together, where we actually interviewed 15, 20 CMOs and retail leaders to get their own input to the book as well. So that's launching on September 24th, and you can get it on Amazon, or you could go to amazonforcmos.com to get notified when that launches, so you can get it for free on Kindle the first week that it's out.
Awesome.
Wow, well, you are crushing it. I got to tell you. And so, keep up the good work. I actually, my wife and I have talked a little bit about maybe getting a tiny house in Costa Rica. So who knows? Maybe we'll, and if you guys ever get to the Netherlands, by all means, we can go get some coffee at a coffee shop here.
All right, I might have to accept your LinkedIn invitation then.
You did. You accepted it right on the phone.
Damn it!
Yeah, you're too late. You can't back out now. All right. Well, Kiri Masters, everybody, thank you so much for being on the show. And we want to have you back. Bring us on your podcast, get that going. And
you gotta tell us though, what are you geeky about? Because we like on the Marketing Geeks, where we talk about geekiness. We could geek out on movies, we geek out on marketing, we geek out on business. But what are you geeky about? And maybe tell us a little bit about this lamp habit of yours.
I think that I'm pretty in terms of the depth of Amazon geekiness. I'd say I'm pretty deep geek status on Amazon. And I think with the lamp stuff as well, I did actually, the first book that I wrote and published is called Old Lamps, New Life, which you can also find on Amazon today as well, which is all about how to rewire antique lamps. So I guess I'm making the case for just whatever you are geeky about, just go full geek on that thing, and you will figure out a way to make it work and turn it into a living somehow. Because you couldn't tell me early in my life that I would make money from selling lamp pots and and talking about Amazon all day.
I think that's a great quote to leave it on. Go full geek. I like that.
Or in the immortal words of from Anchorman, I love lamp.
I love lamp.
I love lamp.
That was Breck Tomlin or Tamlin.
Yeah.
All right. Kiri Masters, everybody, thank you so much. Have a, and go out there and crush it. Do your thing. Yay.
Marketing Geeks. Stay classy.